We've got a lot to cover, from stocker cattle management, health and nutrition, to heifer retention, cow herd numbers and placements. Crew, let's ranch it up. Good day, everyone, and thanks for riding with us on this all-new episode of the Ranch It Up Radio Show. I'm Jeff Tigger Erhardt.
And I'm Rebecca Wanner, a.k.a. Beck.
A big thank you goes out to our partners, ranchchannel.com. We've got more sale listings and sale reports than we can shake a stick at, so head to ranchchannel.com. Dry Creek Ranch, Wasem Red Angus, Keller Broken Heart Ranch, the CK Bar Ranch, Jorgensen Land and Cattle, Transova Genetics, Axiota Animal Health, bringing us Multi-Min and Lactopro, the American Gelbvieh Association, Imogene Ingredients, bringing us Farmtan, Westway Feed Products, Medora Boot and Western Wear, Allied Genetic Resources and Allied Feeding Partners, LivestockMarket.com, EquineMarket.com, AuctionTime.com, the Tri-State Livestock News, RFD TV, Wrangler, and this fine radio station. Cow Country News, you know, the cow stuff.
And now for an update on MCOOL. According to Meeting Place, the Meat Institute cited past problems with mandatory country of origin labeling, MCOOL, in response to newly proposed federal legislation, while some ranchers voiced support for the American Beef Labeling Act. The measure would reinstate mandatory country of origin labeling for beef, despite a 2014 World Trade Organization ruling that such meat labeling discriminates against Canadian and Mexican livestock producers in violation of U.S. international trade obligations. Introduced in the Senate by a bipartisan group of sponsors, the bill would direct the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, consulting with the USDA, to find a WTO-compliant means to reimpose country of origin labeling for beef. If not implemented within 12 months, the previously overturned MCOOL rule would be reinstated for beef. The current language does not impose such labeling for other meats. Ranchers Cattlemen Action Legal Fund United Stock Growers of America, better known as RCAF USA, was joined by the South Dakota Farmers Union and United States Cattlemen's Association, USCA, in supporting the legislation. USCA President Justin Tupper said that restoring truth to labeling is a critical step toward ensuring transparency for U.S. consumers in the marketplace. For the complete article, head to the show notes for this episode at ranchitupshow.com. Now, this story here was obviously one of the more controversial topics that we are facing right now in the beef business. So we're going to open this one up. Send us your thoughts and why you feel the way that you do. You can call or text 707-726-2420. Again, that's 707-726-2420, or email us at ranchitupshow.com. We want to hear from all sides and share some of those comments. Now, time for our first break. When we come back, we talk stocker cattle health and nutrition, especially implants, with the crew from Zoetis. The Ranch It Up Radio Show will be back right after this.
Cryptosporidium, coccidiosis, scours. Do I have your attention now? Don't let scours affect you this calving season by feeding Farmtan from Imogene Ingredients. But you gotta get it into your cows now. I've been saying it a lot. Head to farmtanusa.com. Why not give Gelbvieh and Balancer bulls a try this year? Raise replacement females with added fertility, increased longevity, and greater productivity. Get increased performance, improve feed efficiency, and increase the carcass merit. Maximize crossbreeding with Gelbvieh and Balancer.
Wasem Red Angus invites you to their 14th annual Bull and Heifer Sale. Thursday, February 20th in Richardton, North Dakota. Selling Red Angus bulls, open heifers, and commercial heifers. Bid and buy online at DV Auction. View all sale information at ranchchannel.com and wasemredangus.com.
Attention cattle producers. Boost your herd's trace mineral status with Axiota Animal Health's Multi-Min 9D. This injectable solution delivers essential trace minerals known to support cattle health and reproduction. Don't settle for less when it comes to your herd health. Trust Axiota Animal Health to keep your cattle in prime condition. Visit your local supplier or veterinarian to learn more about Multi-Min 90. Multi-Min 90, because healthy cattle mean a healthy bottom line.
Cattle Battle.
Welcome back to the Ranch It Up Radio Show, the most information packed into a 30-minute program that you can find at your All Things Ranching newscast. And so glad to be hanging out with y'all. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, rants, it doesn't matter. You can call or you can text 707-RANCH-20. That's 707-726-2420. Our email is ranchitupshow@gmail.com. Prowling around social media at Ranch It Up Show. Now let's talk stocker cattle. Now, if you're like Beck and I, we're watching these markets very closely to see if purchasing grass cattle is a viable fit for our operation. Now, along with the simple projections of if we can make them work, comes the conversation about gain, potential gain, and spinning off that needs to come the discussion about implants. Now, we're bringing this up now to get these different options rolling around in one's mind. Brian Bernhardt joins us today. Brian is a technical service nutritionalist with the Strategic Technical Services Beef Team for Zoetis. Hey, Brian, thanks so much for joining us today. Let's talk implants in stocker cattle first. Let's talk the pros and cons.
You know, as I look at stocker implants, and it doesn't matter what stage we're talking about implants, is a calf's body naturally produces hormones, and those hormones tell the muscle cells to grow larger. When that calf is born, it weighs 80 pounds. It has the same number of muscle cells as when it goes to harvest and weighs 1,500 pounds. The muscle cells just grow larger. They don't get any more. And so all hormones are chemicals in the body that tell one part of the body to do something differently. And so when we administer an implant in the ear, we're helping that system. We're telling the muscle cell to grow larger. And so great thing about implants is it's a pretty low investment with an extremely high ROI. In a stocker operation, an implant could add a quarter pound a day pretty easily, right? So you're grazing 100 days, that's 25 pounds. Today's market, that's worth, let's just say an easy $3 market, for simple math, $75, right? So there's a lot of potential value there. If you start thinking about downside, not a lot come to mind. Maybe if somebody's just roughing something over the winter and only wants them to do a half a pound a day because they're trying to stretch them, maybe then we're not needing for an implant. But, most of the guys are trying to gain pound and a half, 2.5 pounds. I think there's some real opportunities to get some additional value, some additional gain out of those cattle.
Because of the nature of how lots of us producers run stocker cattle, pasture cattle I'm going to key in on. We spend some time getting them used to their new surroundings, maybe used to electric fence, maybe where the water is, monitoring their health. So do you think that because of this, meaning pasture, grazing cattle, sometimes we neglect the nutrition? Even, I know that nutritionalists tend to not call on us guys as much as they would maybe call on the feeder guys or the confinement operators.
Well, I think a lot of stocker guys, their goal is to get those cattle healthy, right? They're trying to buy let's say a high-risk calf that weighs 400 or 500 pounds, right? And they're trying to turn them into a high-valued yearling that the feedlot wants, right? And so it seems like so much of their time is focused on the health. I'm not going to say they forget about the nutrition, but it's usually not the number one focus. I've gotten into some situations before where, customers got a great operation. They're buying cattle. They're doing everything right at the chute. But, have a saying, there's some things you can't fix with a needle. You've got to be able to put good nutrition in front of these cattle. And so I think the implants to some extent or to some customers are a little bit of I don't want to say an afterthought because there's plenty that use them, but there's some that don't. And I just think, I've heard things like, well, it's an extra step at the chute. I got to have an extra guy to implant them. And at the end of the day, I think those are all hurdles we can overcome just with some education, some training. It's not much harder than giving a shot if you've got those cattle caught in the chute. But there's not a nutritionist that usually calls on stocker guys, right? Because you're running them on wheat pasture or you're running them on summer grass and you start giving a little protein when the grass gets, poor quality, when to do that. You're not actively working with a nutritionist that's coming by once every couple months to, make some implant or nutritional recommendation. So I just think there's more need. And it's not that we don't want to support those guys. As Zoetis, we do. But there's so many more stocker guys than there are feedlot customers, right? That part of you take this cow-calf segment, so many customers, we just can't get to all of them. So we depend on some resellers and vets and other channels to help trickle that information down to support those customers.
So when we're talking about implanting and maybe adding that into the mix, do we reach out to our local vet? Because like you said, there isn't necessarily a nutritionalist that reaches out to a lot of us stocker guys. In your recommendation, should we reach out to our vet? Should we get a hold of our Zoetis rep? Where do those conversations start to help us make those decisions of, is this something that we want to start doing in our program?
Yeah, great question. And the answer would be both. Yeah, I'd encourage you, reach out to your local veterinarian. A lot of the veterinarians have years of experience with implants and can provide some support. If for some reason they're not comfortable with that, then, hopefully they have a contact with Zoetis. But yeah, also the local sales reps, reach out to them. Even myself as a nutritionist, I get involved in a lot of those conversations. The sales rep will direct me, or they'll send me a name and number and ask me to reach out. So, because as we're considering whether or not to implant, I think that's one consideration. And then, the next step will be, okay, what do we implant with?
Right.
And I think we need to consider days, because we have some short duration products. We have some long duration products. We also need to consider nutrition and production goals. At the end of the day, I think every stocker should be considering it. I'm not saying it's right for 100% of them, but if a stocker customer isn't getting a premium in writing for an all natural or hormone free calf, I think they should be seriously considering it. And there's very few customers that are actually getting that premium, in writing. The very few that, if they have them locked up, they have a contract set up for an all natural program, by all means, capitalize on those dollars. No harm there. But if they're not getting that, locked up in contract, they really need to be considering it. I mean, it's a technology that has about a 50 to 1 ROI on it. So it's something we would like for them to consider.
Brian Bernhardt with Zoetis Animal Health raises many good points that, yes, one should consider. For more on implant products from Zoetis Animal Health, check out the show notes for this episode at ranchitupshow.com. We have all the details, or if you want to reach out to Brian directly and visit, get a hold of Beck and I, and we will get you all connected. Time for another break. Now, when we come back, we talk markets, cow herd numbers, heifer retention, even the status of the dairy herd and how beef on dairy relates to us in the beef business. Got lots to cover. Keep it locked in the Ranch It Up Radio Show. We'll be right back. LivestockMarket.com offers all the tools you need for a successful production sale. The easy-to-use online platform makes it super easy to take bids from anywhere in the world. Buyers can place pre-bids and real-time bids, browse your sales catalog, and watch your sale broadcast live. LivestockMarket.com is also the ideal platform for private treaty sales and timed online-only auctions. There's no easier way to find buyers for cattle, horses, sheep, and hay. Sell on your terms today with LivestockMarket.com. Nutrition does not need to be difficult or overwhelming or complicated at all. Keep things simple with Westway feed products. Cow-calf, dairy, feedlots, equine, and custom if you need. You can count on Westway. WestwayFeed.com. At Allied Genetic Resources, it's all about commercial customer success.
We see that charge, we understand that charge, and we're going to use all the tools we can to get there.
To maximize heterosis, purchase your next herd sire from an Allied Genetic Resources partner. Just head to AlliedGeneticResources.com.
Superior Red Angus Genetics. Wasem Red Angus invites you to their 14th annual bull and heifer sale, Thursday, February 20th at the Wick Sale facility in Richardton, North Dakota, selling 65 Red Angus bulls, 14 open heifers, and 130 commercial heifers. Bid and buy online at DV Auction. View all sale information at ranchchannel.com and wasemredangus.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Ranch It Up Radio Show. It is that time in the program we check in with Kirk Donsbach, StoneX Financial Incorporated, recapping the markets, finding out what's hot, what's not. Well, if it has four legs and goes moo, it's been hot. I can say that with confidence. There's my market analysis there, Kirk.
Well, you're not very far from wrong, although we did have a little correction this week, but it's been a very hot market.
to say the least. So numbers, that's the first thing I'm going to ask you for, numbers, and then we're going to have to spin the little magic 8-ball. I'm going to pin you down on that too.
All right, we'll get right into it then, Tigger. As of Friday, February 7th, March feeder futures closed the week at $265.17.5. That's down $11.20 on the week, with the CME feeder index down $6.09 at $275.59. That left the basis, or the difference, at a positive $10.41.5. That basis is very, very wide and cannot be sustained. So that will have to come together some way, with either futures going back up to cash or continuing to fall to futures. February live cattle closed the week at $2.82.5. That's down $3.92.5 on the week, with cash trading $2.06 in the south and $2.08 in the north. That left the 5 area weighted average down $2.25 at $2.0711. And the basis versus February futures at a positive $6.28.5. Also a pretty wide basis, not quite as wide as feeders, but very wide. The week with slaughter was 584,000 head. That's down 16,000 head from last week and 33,000 head less than the same week last year. With the higher weights, if we look at that from the production side, production is 4.2% less than this week last year. Choice boxes were down 605 at 321.87. To wrap up the market part of this, March corn futures closed the week at 487.5. That's up $4.75 on the week. Corn is very range bound between $4.80 and $5.
So now the little magic 8-ball time. There's been a lot of discussions about cow numbers, and you know this, and cow herd numbers being the lowest that they've been. Are people retaining females? Are they marketing them? And there's a dynamic that you and I have never really touched on, but this does and is going to play in our market, and that is the whole concept of beef on dairy. That's been talked about more and more and more, especially with the dairy cow numbers being as low as they've probably ever been, and a number of those producers are looking to try to add more dollars to their enterprises and are starting to use the beef on dairy concept and trying to market some of those calves. So looking forward here, and that's been the big discussion here in the last few weeks. In fact, this whole year has been this discussion around how long is this market going to last. I'm just going to offer my opinion, Kirk, is I think that there is still high numbers to be had in this market. I'm not saying that it's profits to be taken, because that's based on everybody's individual situation, of course. But looking down the road, what's your thoughts on that, especially with the whole beef on dairy concept and with the dairy cow numbers being as low as they are and beef cow numbers and the retention not being there because people are selling heifers? Do you think the same way as I do, that there is still a lot of opportunities to be had in this beef deal?
So the short answer, Tigger, is yes, there's definitely some opportunity left in this market. But if you want to really get into the details of your question, I think we need to separate the two dynamics of the market, supply and demand. And let's just take demand and kind of move it off to the side. Obviously, you've got the issues with the tariffs. You've got the macroeconomic issues. Anything can happen on the demand side, even to the most simple is that we just simply price ourselves out of the market. So let's disregard that for this conversation, knowing that risk is out there, but let's just disregard that and focus on the supply side. As far as herd growth, I think the number one thing I look at is heifer placement into the feedlots, and that is up about 2.5% versus last year. If you look at a chart or a graph of that, it's very similar to 2012 versus similar to 2015 when the heifer placement had basically fallen off a cliff, about, say, 20% of normal. We are not there. So this is not 2014-15. This is from a heifer placement perspective, this is much closer to 2012. So short answer, there is some herd growth, but it's very, very small, and it's not comparable to 2014-15. Relative to the beef on dairy issue, they're definitely making their animals better and a little bit bigger. So they are adding some pounds to the supply. I don't think that is a huge issue as long as the price of milk is determining the size of the dairy herd, i.e. I don't think that they're growing the dairy herd so they can sell more calves. With that being said, and this is getting pushed around a little bit, the dairy heifer supply is about 1 million head short. So they're pushing more of their calves into the beef supply chain than they are into the dairy chain. That will have to be fixed at some time. trying to guess that is probably nearly impossible. But I would say that is coming. They will have to start retaining more heifers, which removes them from the beef chain.
And the reason that I'm bringing up, especially that beef on dairy situation, is more and more and more that people need to understand where their break even is. You and I have said this so many times, and I'm preface of saying you and I have said this so many times, but given all of these different factors that are going on in the business right now, if you don't even know if this is a time when you're profitable, I mean, now is really a time, because there are so many more factors now for us in the beef business than there were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 and 30 years ago. There's so many more outside factors, which guys really need to take the time and dial this thing in as best they can to really, I mean, you don't have to get down to the dollar if you don't want to, but really dial this deal in to find out what is my break even, to see, are we profitable and how much are we profitable? Because that's going to really help dictate, should we retain those females? Should we sell those females? Should we keep them as breds? Do we need to go outside? Do we need to, rent more ground? I mean, that dictates so many different decisions that we may be making this next year. And I think it's going to be very critical to know those numbers.
I absolutely agree. And the reason I agree so strongly is on the issue we just kind of roughly mentioned, and that is the demand side. There's so many unknowns on the demand side and so much risk. All the tariff chatter, like, we just don't know how that's going to play out and what effects that will have. It's very, very concerning. So I think our risk is clearly on the demand side, not to mention just how our prices are already.
So, again, guys that want to reach out to you and just visit a little bit, what's the best way? Just email you and kind of coordinate that way, and you can take it over from there. Is that the best way to get a hold of you, Kirk?
That's definitely the best way. Maybe the easiest way to communicate through you is just my phone number, 406-301-8139.
Mark Vanzee with LivestockMarket.com. This week I have a fantastic lineup of production sales to tell you about. Sunday, February 16th at 1 o'clock p.m., Nathan Palm Angus of Esterline, South Dakota will host their annual bull sale and will offer 40 Angus bulls. Monday, February 17th at 1 o'clock p.m., Eagle Pass Ranch of Highmore, South Dakota will host their annual Age Advantage, Sim Angus, and Double X bull sale. The sale will offer 190 Age Advantage bulls. Tuesday, February 18th at 1 o'clock p.m., Bar JZ Ranch of Holabird, South Dakota will host their 76th annual sale, selling 60 polled Hereford bulls, 53 polled bred heifers, and 25 polled open heifers. Lastly, the Nebraska Cattlemen's Classic will hold their sales on Thursday the 20th and Friday the 21st. The breed sale and pen bull sale will be Thursday at 12 o'clock and offer 104 bulls, 7 bred heifers, and 65 open heifers. The commercial heifer pen sale will happen on Friday at 2 o'clock and feature 9 bred pens and 7 open pens. The fancy heifer and prospect steer sale will be Friday at 6:30 p.m., feature 19 fancy heifers and 25 prospect steers. You can view and bid these sales and more at LivestockMarket.com. Do you have a production sale coming up? Learn more about Livestock Market's easy and affordable online bidding services by visiting LivestockMarket.com or give us a call at 844-775-4762 today.
Ready to bust off the ranch for a few days, but the sound of a vacation feels a little daunting? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Hey, I'm Shaye Wanner, and I host the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast. I visited with Cheyenne Schriefer with All Travel Matters about different vacation ideas for ranchers. Cheyenne shares ideas, travel tips, and advice for leaving the ranch during our conversation. Here's a small portion of what we chatted about.
Most people that are in the farming and ranching industry, they like to be outside. They like nature. They like national parks. They like, road trips. They're just used to not, I don't know. I find that most ranchers don't travel. So it overwhelms them, right? Going too far away from home is a little bit overwhelming. So starting out with those smaller trips that maybe could be a day or two's drive away, something that has a quick flight. There's lots of nonstop flights to, if you live over on the eastern side of North Dakota, you can grab a nonstop flight to Nashville now. So that's been a popular one as well, to just do a quick weekend, long weekend getaway. If you're wanting to do something a little bit further from home, you could always do like Napa Valley. There honestly are so many ideas, but it just depends on who you are, what your family looks like. Are you taking your kids? Are you not taking your kids?
Listen to the full story by searching for Casual Cattle Conversations on your favorite podcast player. Happy ranching, folks.
Before we say fare thee well, we want to give a big old tip of the hat to all of you that have battled the bitter cold temperatures this last week. And then some of you ended up digging out of a lot of snow that you were not prepared for. We've been thinking about y'all.
And now that's going to wrap it up for today. A big thanks from our crew to yours, starting out with Brian Bernhardt with Zoetis, Shaye Wanner with Casual Cattle Conversations, Kirk Donsbach, StoneX Financial Incorporated, Mark Vanzee with LivestockMarket.com, and the boss lady, Rebecca Wanner, a.k.a. Beck.
A big thank you to our partners, ranchchannel.com. Check it out for the new listings and sale reports. Dry Creek Ranch, Wasem Red Angus, that's coming up February 20th, by the way. Keller Broken Heart Ranch, Jorgensen Land and Cattle, CK Bar Ranch, Transova Genetics, Axiota Animal Health, bringing us Multimin and Lactopro, the American Gelbvieh Association, Imogene Ingredients, Farmtan, Westway Feed Products, Medora Boot and Western Wear, Allied Genetic Resources, Allied Feeding Partners, LivestockMarket.com, EquineMarket.com, AuctionTime.com, the Tri-State Livestock News, RFD TV, Wrangler, and this fine radio station.
And crew, so glad y'all came with us one more time as we ranch it up. Be sure to follow and like us on Facebook at Ranch It Up Show. Our email is ranchitupshow@gmail.com. You can call and you can text 24/7. That phone number is 707-RANCH-20. That's 707-726-2420. Spread the good word and join us again next week where it's always Tigger and Beck approved.
Stay ranchy and ranch it up.